action. Alright, the water shows first of all, start off with the drawing, obviously. A couple little tricks to that. It's right here on the perimeter of the water. You want to make sure that your water arrangement looks good. So in other words, like right here, to go back in the distance, if you look at this, it looks like it's pretty flat further away. Up closer, you could have it curve more, more shapes, more dynamic. And the further back you go, the more jig-jagged it has to be. So in other words, to go from here to here, you can't just curve it like that. It'll look like out of perspective. So you have to add these extra little bumps to it. I'll show you like one right here, for instance. So it comes out, and basically the shape is more like this. For the background, you're gonna have like a little jiggity jag, these little things here. So you can't just curve it down like that. It'll look terrible. It's gonna go back and forth more or less. So like right here, I could have it go further back in the distance. To do that, I'll go like this. And if you have it go back even further, have it come straight out. So this little landmass here could come up like a little hill. And I could curve it out just like this. So the lines you're looking for are these little points. You want that, this, even that. I would draw an example out in your sketchbook too. So you can see perspective-wise, if I went down here like this, it looked really weird. But because of these little flat corners, like right here, bump, bump, I'll turn this into a small hill so that the water goes around and behind it. Those little details are nice. Okay, so now with water, you start dark and you go lighter and lighter and lighter. So a couple of warnings. So when you do water, a couple things here to make it really look good. One of them normally is a light blue sky. So you can do like a brown sky or a sunset, but that means your reflections have to be brown as well. So if you have brown water, a little more work to make it look like water, but it's still possible. So I'll use like blue, a little bit of green, like algae kind of thing, black to tone it down, even some burnt umber. So in my base coat, so I'll come in here like this. The pond you see on the other side of this started off with this color. So a nice clean edge there. This comes around. Now you can really see that little jetty. Looks like it comes out, the water goes behind it. Just by a little peak right there. So that's kind of nice. More depth, more layers to it. So you want to add things to your water, like don't try to just take things away. Okay, so you'll see a lot of similarities between this and wood. So with this, come in here, just like wood, we only go one direction. Same thing with paint. So I'll brush a little bit further back, about like this. That way when I paint, it'll be a nice smooth arc, kind of like that. You don't want to stab and drag it. You want to arc it like this. And instead of like going like sideways with the brush, like this, I'll also put the brush at a little bit of an angle, so it's kind of a diagonal brush stroke. That way it feathers on a lot nicer. Okay, so now I'm going to do the blue and the greens. I'll go back and forth, just like this. And I would position yourself so you're going to be right in front of the canvas. And the reason is because if you're sitting down like right in front of the canvas, if you're right-handed, you'll tend to like bend the water going down this direction. So to make sure it's flat, all you have to do is just like stand up right in front of it and get that going. So this is a little bit too blue right here. A little bit of a tint, not too much. Now we'll go back into the brown, scumble that in a little bit. And with water, it's just like the more layers you have, the better it's going to look. Just like I said, base coat. And not just a base coat. I'm also worried about brush strokes, overall value, changed really easy, but I'm even trying to get some decent color in there too. Back to the green a little bit. So I'm constantly changing color. So this is going to get darker, emerald blue kind of thing. And I keep, when you do the water, the base coat might be a little bit thicker, but you still want to add quite a bit of water to your brush strokes. So the brush is pretty wet. If it's dry, it won't look like water. Key to painting water is water. Feathering that out. And water is kind of nice to add as well. So if you're doing like field or something, you can add a small vernal pool, small pond, breaks up all that grass and what have you. It's really brown there. Right here, it's way too dry. I'll wet up my brush a little bit, then let it fade out. So now, if you remember that sponge we had for the wood, you do the same thing here. The torn sponge, I'll let it kind of fade out into my old water, drag it out. I'll eventually go over this whole thing. All right. So this is like a base coat. Layer number one. Layer number one on water. Okay, now the key is to let that thing dry. However, tomorrow I'll have a hairdryer. Today I don't. I'll pretend it's dry here pretty quick. We'll call that good enough. Okay, the next layer of paint, after that's totally dry, you want to go about 10% lighter, but not much more than that. So about 10% lighter. Could add some blue to it. Wet brush. Because it's not dry, it's not going to be happy about the wet brush, but it's okay. So then, I'm going to, like, when I paint, I'll show you a side view of the canvas. Let's pretend this is the side of the canvas right here. The brush comes down like this, comes down, barely hits it, then eases off again. So it comes down, skirt, and then lifts up. You're not really smashing the brush down. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit more and do like very small arcs. So I'm not really painting it. I'm just kind of like small arcs, just like I showed you on that back of that aluminum box. So this is about 10% lighter. And here I'll do the same thing. So waters take about, I would say, 6 layers of paint. Right here it's too dry. Add a little more water, a little more lube to the paint. And you want to start dark though first. It's weird, so even if you try to paint that color in without going dark first, it'll feel kind of thin. You can kind of tell the difference between like paint that's thin, like 1 layer paint, in contrast to like 5 layers. All right, so now I'm going over all of that. Now I'll start to blend in with my other water a little more. You can still see some more color there, but not tons. This is the part where it needs a little more patience. Back and forth. Using this technique. And my brush, once again, is like angled a little bit. And the reason why it's angled is so I don't see like the hard edge when I start or stop. I'll go all the way into my grass a little bit, so that's okay. Then I have it really dark on this side. I might even leave it kind of dark so you can see a variety of it. So I can see layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, etc. Now I'll mix up a little more of a tint. More white right there. I'll go over this. So this is kind of rough right here in this area. This is like layer 3 or 4 or whatever it is. Right across. Other things. Tricks water so it looks really good. I write a few things down. One of them, when you're doing waters, you want something to reflect. So if you can see the tree over here, reflection of the tree is good. Could be a person standing in the water or whatever else you want. But you really do want to have like something reflecting in there. I'll show you some examples of that here in a second. All right, so right here, you can kind of tell it's a little bit on the dry, it's a little pebbly, kind of a pebbly texture. Since I didn't have enough water in my brush, I'll go back into it. More water, more lube. It's back and forth, methodical. You're trying to make a perfect blend, but you won't be able to, which is fine. The imperfections in the water turn out looking more like small waves or current. Okay, so now I got that base. It's kind of hard to tell. Maybe I'll turn these lights out. I think that's better. Yeah. Okay, so a little more white to it. Another tint. Like 10% lighter once again. And repeat that process. I'm going to focus more in the middle of those. Middle's going to be my lightest part of this lake, pond, vernal pool, whatever it is. And so I'm barely touching it though, so it looks kind of easy, but you got to get a handle on like what that feels like, which is just through practice. So now it goes from like a light blue over here, where the sky is a little more blue, dark over here. I might even call that almost for this part. Okay. And here my brush strokes are kind of fading off. A little bit of an angle, so I'll fix those real quick. Okay, so that's a good base. So that was, well, not the base. With the dark base, there's like a good reflection for overall. We'll go back in and add some more details to it. Where's my magic brush? There it is. Okay, so with the sides, to get more clarity to this thing, if you have like a dark brownish black, like mud or something on the banks, so I'll go like a little darker here. The whiter it is, the more it looks like it comes up. This kind of cleans it up, so it's not really black, but more like a dark brown. I'll come over here to the same thing. And as it gets further away, that line just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Till it's heck small. Okay. I have 10 minutes. Alright, so now, rinse this off. Add the bank in there. So there's where some of the magic happens. This is kind of fun. Take white, maybe a dirty white, don't be a bright white. And right near the shore, just have a little bit of bling. The water's kind of lapping up against the shore. Show you that. So then I'll come in here, right where it joins it, tap that on there a little bit. Some pure black, some brighter whites as well. Boop, boop. Little line. If you outline the entire thing, it won't look nearly as good. Just a little bit here and there. They're like just little accents. So the whole thing seems to look good, even though most of it's fair. Okay. Now that I have that part done, I'll go in and add some waves to that. So I would say for the wave part, write down like accent some of your existing brush strokes. In other words, right here I have a heavy brush stroke. Looks kind of weird right now, but I'll turn that into like a little wave coming on the shore. Small one here. Little foam. Then I'll have it fade out. So now all of a sudden, what was a mistake looks like a wave. Add a little more white to it. And even this has like some dots, not a perfect line. You don't want a line. Here's another one here. So if I have like a light part here, so I'm gonna have like the wave be right underneath it. So here's another light part. Now as I go further back, the wave has to be smaller to get a sense of depth. So now a little bit of a line there. So here, I'll speed this process up a little bit, but you get the idea. In the center, you can put little dots as well. Little bling dots, little shine. Adds a little bit of magic to it. Okay. And you can do more waves over here if you wanted to. Going side to side, even if you're doing like a creek or something, make sure that your brush strokes are originally parallel with the bottom of the canvas. Don't go diagonal. It'll look like your lake is tilting, which is kind of a weird look. Okay, so that's it pretty much for the bling of the water. Reflections is the next thing. I'll do like a little fence. So the fence, I'll have that over here. Be a tall fence. All right, so the fence, I want darker contrast, so it shows up in the water. I'll have it come straight down. And a little bit of an angle too. I'm not gonna just do the straight up and down. Maybe just right here. I'll do another one here. They could be crooked, but the actual boards themselves should be like really straight. I would use a ruler at first. And then go from there. So they're all kind of janky. The neighbor actually built this fence. And it was for free, it was like for a favor. So I don't really care about how straight it was. Another one here. Oh, come another board going down this direction. That one's a little bit on the crooked side. Okay, so now I got a little bit of a fence kind of thing. I'll add highlights to it later. So when you're doing reflections, don't confuse reflections with shadows. So it doesn't matter where the light source is, the reflection is the inverse of whatever you're painting. So if the board's coming out this direction, then this will come out the other direction. And when you paint the reflection, it should be like small horizontal brush strokes. So here, come in here, then water, water it out even more. Side to side brush strokes. I'll tap it out with my finger a little bit. I'll do the same thing here. Then over here, side to side brush strokes, a little choppy. And repeat for this side. Go in the opposite directions, go in the inverse once again. Here, so the reflections, you can see, makes it look like water. So at first it's like, what is that, blue cement? You see the reflection, you go like, oh damn, that's water. Also, if you could get a sun to reflect in there, that'd be great. And all this works with the oil pastels as well. All right, take my finger, tap it out a little bit. So as you can see, the reflections really do help. Now, other things you can add to the water. I'll take little lily pads, a little permanent green and black. I'll do a cluster of those, more or less. And they're elliptical in shape. They're further away, so they're not going to be round. You're not looking down at them. You're looking out at them. So with these, it'll be kind of like a ellipse. A little small one here. Lily pads grow in clusters. They come from one plant. They don't just float. Cluster there on that side. And then I'll take a little white paint. Add a little flower to it. Maybe another one over here. Oh, how cute. Alright, now the bling. So with the bling, come in here, a little white around the edge, show the reflection of the water on the lilies. Man, it's kind of small. I'll have to zoom in a little bit. So if you zoom in, you can see it better. Alright, so that is the basics, Water 101.